Welcome to Sage Audio. Today we're covering how to use dynamic EQ. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. How to make a dynamic EQ. For these first two chapters, let's talk about how to dynamically EQ if you don't want to purchase a plugin for it. With a stock EQ, or with any EQ really, we can automate the amplitude of bands at various points. This will be time consuming for sure, but it'll give you a lot of control over when aspects of the EQ are amplified or attenuated. Let's listen to a regular EQ being automated at specific points. TDR Nova Free Dynamic EQ. Alternatively to our first chapter, we could use a free dynamic EQ, the TDR Nova, to dynamically expand or compress up to 4 bands. To do this, we enable the band, then lower the threshold, and adjust the ratio to 1.1 to 1 or higher to compress, or 0.9 to 1 or lower to expand the band. For example, I could expand my highs with the shelf and set a ratio of 0.5 to 1. Let's take a listen to the TDR Nova and expand the lows and highs while compressing some of the mids. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button. It helps us bring you more videos. How to use FabFilter Pro Q3 Dynamic EQ. For the next 7 chapters, we'll look at what might be the most versatile dynamic EQ, the FabFilter Pro Q3. First, let's look at how to use the dynamic bands. Simply create a band and determine the frequency and other parameters as you normally would. Right-click and make that band dynamic, then adjust the translucent band upward to expand or downward to compress to whatever extent that you'd like. The EQ can make up to 26 dynamic bands, so you have a lot of options. Let's use the same bands that we did in the last chapter and pay attention to how this EQ's behavior is slightly different. Dynamic stereo expansion. Since the Pro Q3 has mid-side capabilities, we could use dynamic bands on either the mid or side, in turn affecting our stereo image. For example, I could place a dynamic high shelf filter on the side image to expand the highest frequencies of that side image. It's a simple but really useful way to dynamically adjust your stereo image, making for more complex and interesting imaging. Let's take a listen and notice the widening of the highs. Only a small percentage of people that watch our videos are subscribed, so if you're enjoying the video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind. Dynamic left-right processing. Similar to our last chapter, we can place bands on the left and right channels to subtly and dynamically affect the stereo image. I'll create 2 bell filters, one on the left and right at slightly varying frequencies. Then I'll make them both dynamic and expand both bands. I find this sounds a little cleaner than mid-side expansion and also has a unique sound comparatively. Let's take a listen and notice how the image becomes wider. Inverse dynamic EQ trick. This is a complex trick, but I'll try to be brief. First, I'll use the external sidechain and select a competing signal. For example, if I'm equalizing the kick, I could sidechain the bass. I'll match their signals using the full 26 bands and delete any extreme bands. Next, I'll highlight all the bands and use the gain dial to invert their gain. Now, everything that made them match separates the 2 competing signals. Lastly, I'll highlight all the bands, right-click, and make them dynamic. Let's take a listen to how inverse dynamic equalization sounds on a kick and bass. Sidechain dynamic EQ. This one is a little complex as well. First, I'll sidechain a competing signal. For example, I could place the EQ on the full instrumental and sidechain the vocal. I'll create a dynamic band and place it on an area where the two overlap, like 2 kHz, and select the sidechain icon. Then, I'll drag the band downward to cause compression. Now, whenever the vocal is sung, 2 kHz on the instrumental is attenuated, making it easier to hear the vocal. Let's take a listen to this particular example and notice the vocal's increased presence. If you're enjoying the channel, join the community with the link in the description. Dynamic EQ de-essing. If you don't like the sound of your de-esser, or you simply want to try something different, you can use a dynamic EQ to de-ess your vocal. I'll create a bell filter, place it over my sibilants, then place it only on the mid image so that it only affects the sibilants. I'll compress as you'd expect and adjust my bandwidth until I only affect the area I want compressed. Let's listen and notice how effective this can be for de-essing. Kick and vocal, dynamic EQ. Let's look at a common use for dynamic EQ on a master or mix bus. What I want to do is increase the kick and vocal, but let's pretend that I only have access to the stereo mix. I'll create a dynamic bell on the mids and place it over the kick. Then I'll create another dynamic mid bell and do the same to roughly 2 kHz to expand the vocals. Lastly, I'll create 2 dynamic bells on the side and dip about 20 Hz lower than the frequencies that I boosted on the mids. The mid bands will amplify these instruments where they're most powerful, and the side bands will reduce masking. Let's take a listen to it. How to use Weiss EQ1's dynamic EQ. Let's use the last 2 chapters to talk about the Weiss EQ1. It's a little finicky, but the EQ1's dynamic processing sounds great. To use it, I'll enable the band, select the dynamic band at the bottom left, and then adjust the threshold. The dynamic aspect is difficult to see, so we can use the full screen mode to check it. When triggered, the range is controlled by the amplitude of the band. Let's listen to the same settings that we used on the TDR Nova and Pro Q3. Mid-side dynamic EQ with EQ1. Last up, let's use the mid-side functionality of the EQ1 by selecting mid-side and delinking the 2 channels. Channel 1 is going to be our mid, which leaves channel 2 as the side, so we can switch between the 2 and create the bands accordingly. Let's use this EQ to boost the kick and vocal like we did in chapter 9. If you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.